Good evening. I'm audible, I'm visible. Good evening to all of you. Good evening. Audible, visible. Okay, very good. Perfect. We wait for 2 to 3 minutes. Good to see you all again. Quite a long time. Last time we met, we were talking about the prelims current affairs. Today we are here with mains based current affairs, GS paper 1 and 2. We'll wait for 2 3 minutes for everybody to join in and then we'll start. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Well, Pooja, welcome to the class. If it is your first class, no issues at all. If there's any issue, just refresh. Everybody has confirmed that I'm audible and visible, but if you are finding an issue, just refresh. Okay. Good evening, good evening. Good evening. Prelims examination, art and culture tip. Just create a space in which you're revising art and culture every day. Yes, Kirubar, I will be taking that morning batch. Modern India is going to be me only from 11th April. As I said, for art and culture, make sure that you are revising every day something for sure. Don't keep it to the end. Try to keep on learn every day, every day. So divide whatever theater, martial arts into certain parts and then you can do it. How to make notes for 2025? You can make notes for any year. See, note making, there are two aspects. First, when it's about static portion, either you use our PPTs as notes itself and add data into it. But current affairs, there should be a certain amount of notes making because it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot which you need to manage together. So you need to make one thing for sure, which is that a repository in which you add everything together, which is that if you don't, it will become too much. It will become too much to manage. For multiple years, it is even more important. So for 2022, for 2023, 4, 5, 2023, already the boat has already sailed. 2024, 25, 26, 27, 20, 30, 35, 50. Simple point of the matter is you have to have a certain type of index which you have, where all the polity, art and culture, economy, and you can use the way we technically are telling you in target prelims, wherein we are discussing all the current affairs in one place, giving you a repository in that way. So the basic point of the matter is notes making is important, extremely important in current affairs. Static also, if you have to collate multiple sources in that way. Okay. Perfect. So I'll wait 1 more minute and then we'll begin. As I said, today is about mains-based current affairs, GS paper 1 and 2. And we'll discuss 5 very interesting topics spanning these two. But more than that, out of these 5, 2 are very important topics out of Yojana and Kurukshetra. So Yojana and Kurukshetra are 2 magazines which should be covered by you. So we cover it for you. And because the Kurukshetra was budget special, so the topic is budget. So in a way, it's not just paper GS paper 1 and 2. We are doing GS paper 3 also, wherein we are discussing economy in a way. And we'll talk about the healthcare sector and the budgetary allocation. 2 topics related to budgetary allocations and generally how we talk about it in the larger context of development of India. And we'll talk about these things. So before we go into the discussion, as it is, I hope that for anybody who's 2023 and even 24, 25, you are giving the sectional test now. Full course tests are happening every Sunday. This Sunday again we'll have a full course test. So I hope that you are doing them. It's a very good way of evaluating your preparation. Don't get demoralized by it, but just use it as a way of study material in that way. Thereafter, if you see, even if you're multiple years, I would encourage you to give it, because that way there will be a practice or a habit of actually doing the papers. So it's only the third test. There are 6 more tests available. You can do the ones which are already in the portal. That is totally there. you can go to the BEP app to know more. Even if not that, you can just email us. We'll get it sorted for you. Okay. Now, the 5 topics we covered today are: first, we'll discuss a very major development with regards to international relations, GS paper 2, which is Russia and Belarus, a major development in with regards to how this nexus has become a issue for the NATO countries. Thereafter, we'll talk about startups and ease of doing business. This is a Yojana topic coming out of March 2023 module or a magazine itself. Remember one thing, that Yojana Kurukshetra are not written in quite a lot of detail. They are written by government servants itself. That is why it becomes important. So they will give you a basic idea, but that basic idea is enough to write a mains answer. Then we'll discuss the Rajasthan Right to Health Bill, a major controversial aspect, but a major precedence which has been created. Thereafter, a Kurukshetra topic about healthcare ecosystem and budgetary allocation. The third and fourth topic get together. And from GS paper 1, we have adopt a heritage, Apni Dharohar, Apni Pehchan, a scheme which has now come into focus recently in the last 1 month. So very simply, 5 topics which are interconnected to each other and are important for your mains preparation. As I said, for anybody who's making notes, remember that there are 2 types of current affairs. One is called prelims based current affairs. The other one is called mains based current affairs. Prelims based current affairs are what we do on Tuesdays. Much easier, straightforward, small. So we do multiple topics. Don't have to go into too much detail in that regard. And thereafter, there are mains based current affairs where you need to understand not the details, but the idea. The core idea is very, very important for you, because as it is, you would have to write an answer. And we have questions for you to practice. We'll do that also. So if everybody is ready, everybody is here, can we begin our discussion for today? Yes? Okay, very good. So good evening to all of you. Good to see you again. Let's begin our understanding. How to write an answer, I'll tell you that also once we'll go into that area. Do we need to revise Kurukshetra Yojana topics? No, Yojana Kurukshetra topics are mostly mains based concept. Never, they are prelims based. They have a lot of detail. I'll show you that type of, I have the detail out of it. I will tell you how to manage that. Okay, let's talk about the Russia-Belarus nexus. And if you know me, you know me. If you don't, I'm Abhishek Mishra. And basically the way we structure the lecture is very simple. In the same lecture, we revise twice. I'll give you the basic idea. Then I'll go into the nitty-gritty of the topic. Then I'll give you a summary. And then we'll do a mains question to just consolidate everything. So what is the first topic? The first topic deals with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine crisis and the new friendship or nexus which has developed. As it is, it was a nexus already, but a new development in that regard. So now close to a year, Russia invaded Ukraine. And as it is, the Crimean Peninsula was invaded in 2014. Russia has always taken Ukraine as a buffer state. Basically, NATO countries, the West itself, saw Ukraine as a buffer state. Ukraine had for a very long time making a major case for adding it to the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The NATO is a very important organization because once you become part of the NATO, if you attack any NATO country, you are attacking each and every NATO country. So they respond together. And Ukraine, being a erstwhile USSR state itself, always knew that Russia had certain ambitions with regards to Ukraine. As it is, Russia has 2 major ports, which is St. Petersburg and Vladivostok. St. Petersburg, the problem is that it is in the Baltic Sea, Northern Sea. Baltic Sea itself freezes over in the winter, so it's not an all-weather port. And Vladivostok is on the other side of the world itself, which is in the Pacific Ocean. So there used to be historically a very important port called Sevastopol, which was there in the Crimean Peninsula, which Russia always used. But once the USSR disintegrated in 1991 and 1992 period, Ukraine came out and Sevastopol went to Ukraine. And since then, Ukraine initially had a pro-Russian government, later turned into anti-Russia, and a lot of friction. In 2014, we saw a major escalation with regards to taking the Crimean Peninsula. But that is technically like a Hitlerish move which Putin did, is to check the boundaries of what he can do. So when Ukraine lost Crimean Peninsula to the Russians, the West does not respond. What I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to give you a major backstory or context here. People argue that Russia has been aggressive. Yes, Russia has been aggressive, but equally aggressive has been the NATO countries. And now they will say injustice is happening. There's whole UN cry that Ukraine should be given freedom, this and that. But the reason why Ukraine is the way it is today is because of the West itself. I fully blame the West and the NATO countries, because Ukraine had been asking for NATO status and for a very long time. Since 2005 itself, there was a major proposal to add Ukraine into NATO countries, but that did not happen. Now, when Russia saw that basically the West is not interested because of the oil-rich and basically resource-rich areas, Donbass and all, very resource-rich areas of Ukraine, Russia invaded. Now, this is history now. We've been talking about it for a very long time. But there has been a major escalation in this whole story because Russia had been using this N word quite a lot, which is nuclear. So if you understand the basic context here, Russia, Ukraine, I'll go into the next set of detail or context for understanding this topic itself. You understand the basic premise here, which is Russia, Ukraine. Everybody knows that standard UPSC current affairs anywhere, part of international relations. Now, what has happened over a period of time is that basically Russia has a much bigger and stronger army than Ukraine any day. Vladivostok and St. Petersburg is the one I mentioned. And Ukraine in no position has any comparable army to Russia. However, the US and other EU countries have become a major exporter to Ukraine as of right now. First, it was only arms and ammunition. Then it became anti-tank missiles such as the Javelin and all. But thereafter, recently, the Leopard tank of the Germans has landed in Ukraine. Ukraine is getting drones. And more than that, now even the Americans are ready to send an Abraham tanks. The UK is sending tanks. So there is basically a major arms export to Ukraine as of right now. And basically, Ukraine is now having the capability to even hit 80 to 90 kilometers inside Russia because of the what we call as anti-air, and more than that, anti-aircraft and generally short-range missiles which have been given by the US and the EU. Everybody is not ready to give them major what we call as cruise missiles, because then they could hit too much inside into Russia, maybe till Moscow. But missile export has also started to happen to Ukraine. Now, very recently, now pay attention. Now I'm entering into the current affairs aspect. Very recently, the British have sanctioned a very specific type of ammunition which has triggered this Russia-Belarus response. And what is this development? That basically the British have allowed the export of depleted uranium tank ammo or rounds to Ukraine. Basically, if you've ever seen a structure of a tank round, the UK, the British, yes, the same. A basic round of a tank basically has a projectile which is inside it, and there's a shells like this. There's a shell like this. Now, the T-45, the T-95 tanks have what we call as very heavy armoring. So when this is blasted out of the tank, if you don't have a good armor piercing round, The tank can withstand basically tank rounds and even anti-tank missiles. UK has now allowed a depleted uranium tipped tank round. Basically, this part of the tank round or ammunition will have uranium in it. And this type of a projectile or a round or an ammunition for the tank is considered very lethal, because when it hits the armor of the tank, the uranium evaporates, which allows for very heavy penetration. And once it enters into the tank, the uranium leads to thermonuclear, what we call as exothermic reaction. A lot of heat is produced and it leads to a blast. Depleted uranium basically comes out of nuclear reactors itself, the very peaceful nuclear reactors. The depleted uranium round is considered poisonous and at one level chemical warfare. So as soon as it's technically a nuclear weapon, as soon as the UK has allowed for the depleted uranium rounds to be given to Ukraine, Russia has now said that it will deploy strategic military nuclear equipment in Belarus. And Belarus is important because Belarus is bordered by all NATO countries. Now, very simply, this is a major escalation in this story. Why? Because now the nuclear technology and nuclear tipped rounds and even nuclear based, warhead based short range missiles are now being deployed. Now, this is an alarm bell to all of us. Belarus is a different country altogether. See, Belarus is very strategically located. It's ruled basically by a dictator, pro-Russian dictator. But Belarus is the neighbor of Poland, NATO country, the Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia sector, again NATO countries, Slovakia, NATO country, Hungary, NATO country, Romania, NATO country, and has a border with Ukraine itself. Therefore, the simple point of the matter is that Russia placing its nuclear capable missiles and equipment in Belarus is now the new normal and the escalation of an issue which was already in the news for quite a long time. So the basic concept here is that there has been an escalation in the Ukraine-Russia war, wherein Putin has announced that Russia is going to station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Now, please understand this. That what is the core concept before I go into the nitty-gritty. Very simply, Russia-Ukraine has been there for a very long time now. Ukraine is making major strides because of the European technology and the US technology and weapons. However, now UK has escalated this issue by allowing nuclear technology or nuclear weapons to be used against Russia. And now Russia has responded by saying that we will place our nuclear weapons in Belarus. Are we clear with regards to the basic core concept here? Come on, tell me. The core concept should be clear here. Then I will go into does it actually impact any treaty, or does it actually not become a part of the larger diplomatic aspect of keeping disarmament there or not? So let's talk about this. You understand it? Very good. So very simply, Russia-Ukraine war, and the concept is the British have allowed for a depleted uranium tank round to be used against Russia. Here it is actually Russia itself. Here it's actually the UK which has escalated this issue. It's actually the UK which has escalated the issue. And very simply, Russia is responding by keeping tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Now, the basic concept is people will say that how can Russia do it? How can Russia do it? Russia can do it because of certain precedents which the US has created. Russia has argued that we are in all right to keep nuclear weapons in Belarus because we are not giving nuclear weapons to Belarus. That would be a escalation, and it would be negating the non-proliferation treaty. The NPT would then get breached if Russia gives Belarus the missiles. Russia is saying no, 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 no. We are not giving the missiles to Belarus. Rather, we are just placing them there, and we have the control of these missiles. And they say that how does the US place all its missile throughout the NATO sector? We are also doing the same thing. Now, why is this very important for your preparation? Because now the nuclear aspect is becoming more and more the part of this whole war. And you should know, and you would know, that nuclear warfare is very dangerous warfare and can lead to generations of damage to that country. So, the basic point of this whole exercise is that there's a new dimension which has come in the Russia-Ukraine war, and therefore now it is becoming a major concerning aspect in Europe itself. So now let's go into the nitty-gritty of this topic. Are we clear with regards to the basic concept? Britain giving depleted Ukraine rounds, in turn leading to Putin putting the tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Okay, does it affect India? No, technically not. But any warfare, India would have to take side, and that's the bigger issue for us. So what is the context? All of this has been prompted by the United Kingdom's, which is English, decision to supply armored piercing rounds containing depleted uranium to Ukraine. So it has depleted uranium in its armored piercing rounds to Ukraine. Depleted uranium munition, or which is ammunition, is basically considered by the United Nations Environment Program, the UNEP, as chemically and radiologically toxic heavy metal. And how it works is very simple. When you look at this basic round here, this is a tank round. In the tank round, you have basically a tip and a projectile which is inside. When you fire that round, the shell goes out, and the shell comes out, and the projectile becomes the main weapon which goes against the tank. When the tip, uranium depleted tip, touches the armor of the tank itself, uranium vaporizes, it pierces, and when it pierces, there's a major heat reaction which leads to sparks and an explosion itself. It is believed, remember, it is believed that these are 100 times more effective against an armored tank itself. Now, very simply, was this needed? Do tell me, was this needed in the Russia-Ukraine crisis? Did the UK do the right thing by doing actually this? Yes, you're totally correct. Not needed. It's an unnecessary escalation. It's a totally unnecessary escalation because it is fully unnecessary. They had tanks, they were getting tanks, but why? What is the point of giving them depleted uranium rounds? Now, if I say this to you, is Russia's response justified? The answer to that question is what? Yes, it is. Because this is not justified on the part of the UK. So very simply, why am I having this discussion with you? Because you, as the future Indian Foreign Service officer, could be in a position to take a position or take a stance that should we abandon Russia for its decision? And the answer to that question is going to be what? It's going to be no. It's obviously no. No, it isn't. We shouldn't. we shouldn't support the NATO countries or the UK. We should support Russia, because Russia's response is very straightforward. Very simply, Russia has nowhere else to go but to actually use Belarus as a deterrent now. Because Putin has been talking about, I will use nuclear weapon, I will use nuclear weapon, I will use nuclear weapon. But he didn't use nuclear weapon. And the major first step has come from the UK, a NATO country. Therefore, very simply, why is this important concept? Because if there's a question which comes with regards to this, you have to take a balanced stance. You can't condemn Russia for its stance, but Russia as it is at fault when it comes to the way it is taking Ukraine or even entering Ukraine. But now this is becoming messier and messier and messier because of the politics of the West. And just to refresh your memory, and if you've done world history with me, you would know Russia always feels like a victim. And it has always been made to feel like a victim. And now doing this to Russia is actually only alienating Russia more. And because Belarus is one country which has always been used as a buffer state vis-a-vis Russia and Poland as of right now is actually quite active and asking for F-16s from the US. This war has now become like a war game. Everybody's enjoying it. And now it's become an occasion for Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, even Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia, who would never in their life get F-16s or American equipment. They are now making it a chance to get equipment which they would never have get access to. So it's now just become a joke. That's the basic point. It's just that it's like now become the concept that, okay, Ukraine is burning, give me F-16s because I could be next. This logic does not work. This logic does not work. Unfortunately, this is the reality of the politics in Europe as of right now. Now, they can ask you a very simple question. Why Belarus? Why has Belarus been chosen as a candidate by Russia? They are very close allies. And both are basically culturally very similar because most of the population of Belarus is Russian speaking. They have very less border controls. When it comes to Russia-led military alliances, be it the Collective Security Treaty or the Eurasian Economic Union, Belarus is a very active part of it. But more than that, as of right now, Belarus is getting oil and natural gas at a very subsidized rate. And Russia sees Belarus as a very important partner because of its geostationing or geostrategic location, which is that because it is surrounded by all NATO countries, specifically Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, Estonia, it becomes a major form of deterrence. See, here it's about self-preservation. And simply the Russia-Ukraine conflict has now not remained just a Russia-Ukraine conflict. It has now become a major, what we call as bone of contention, and is now being used by opportunistic countries, if you want to say, or leaders to get what they want to. This is a GS paper 2, very realistic question with regards to the international relations and what is the implication. So this concept is very straightforward, that when Russia is doing it, it is not doing it as a escalation point, but as a deterrent. Now, what are tactical nuclear weapons, which is mentioned in the article itself or in the concept itself? They are small nuclear warhead delivery systems. And Russia says that it is not violating any international treaty or agreement because as the US keeps its weapon in other countries, Russia is just keeping its weapons in another country and having control over it. So the precedence was actually created by the Americans only. And simply the significance of this concept is that now Russia-Ukraine conflict has reached another realm or a new dimension has come in, which is nuclear weapons. So before I enter into the mains question, let me give you a summary for anybody who's joined late or there's some aspect related to which you are not able to follow. Let's keep it very simple. First and foremost, the Russia-Ukraine conflict has been brewing up for quite a long time. Second, Kremlin means, like we said, Delhi, Kremlin is used for Russia's military headquarters. So very simply, Russia-Ukraine conflict for a very long time has been brewing up. The second aspect related to this is that the conflict has now become this arms race in which everybody is providing some form of equipment to someone else. And the UK-based escalation vis-a-vis giving depleted uranium rounds to Ukraine has created a major escalation point wherein Russia is now responding by putting missiles which are nuclear capable in Belarus. And this story can only go downhill only, wherein we will get a major news with regards to this, wherein somewhere or in a major NATO country, either Russia shows aggression or the NATO countries show aggression. So this is an alarming development for us, because India has been very silent with regards to how it has sided with Russia everywhere, all weather friend. But it could come to a situation that India would need to take sides. But the English escalation, somehow the English are always there when it comes to issues. The English escalation, Rishi Sunak's basic agreement to this has now created problems for everybody. So if this concept is clear, we move to the mains question and let's see how to write an answer for this, or what type of question can come in that regard. Yes? Okay, very good. Let's talk about it. I'll talk about what is the way forward and everything. Let's see the question first. Yeah, technically India is walking a very tight rope. Okay. Now see, this is the type of question which can come. The Russia-Ukraine crisis has revealed the fault lines and the grassroots level realities of geopolitics in Europe. Elucidate. This is a very difficult question if you look at it word-wise, but it's a very easy question if you understand the core issue. Why is the UN not doing anything? UN is a toothless dog in the hands of the US. To be very precise and very frank, it has nothing to do. It has no executive power. It is just a mouthpiece of the US. The only thing which the UN can do is just give awards. That's it. Okay. Now, Russia-Ukraine crisis has revealed fault lines and grassroots level realities of geopolitics in Europe. Elucidate. First and foremost point, elucidate. Elucidate means you have to demonstrate. You have to expand, elaborate, elucidate. Now it says fault lines and grassroots level realities of geopolitics. Now in this, very simply, there will be introduction, body, conclusion. Don't have to write it in the examination, but you have to keep it very simple here. And in the introduction, you will give the context that the Russia-Ukraine war has been going on for a very long time. It was based on the Russian ambition to go into the resources areas of Ukraine. Russia did not see it as a long war. However, it has now become a major conflict between the NATO and non-NATO countries, or NATO or Russia itself. So you can write as much context as you want to, but because it's 250 words, you can't go over 50 words. You can't go over 50 words. Now you have to talk about fault lines and grassroots level realities of geopolitics. Now you will say that the world responded by sanctions. But the sanctions did not work because Russia is a major energy supplier to the EU. So the first fault line or grassroots level reality which was revealed in the Russia-Ukraine crisis was you cannot just randomly put economic sanctions and expect countries to get scared. Oh, economic sanctions. No. Economic sanctions were useless. is now leading to energy crisis in Europe itself, and very simply it is going to lead only to further inflation and later major economic stress on European economies, which is already happening. Fault line means that where there are conflicts, basically where you can break Europe. The second is going to be that the way Russia Ukraine is developing, grassroots level reality and fault lines show us that the EU cannot work without the US, and the US is the one which is dictating how everybody responds to the crisis itself. Third, the way Belarus is getting now sided up with Russia, and the way basically the NATO countries or even Poland is responding to certain issues. The fact of the matter is, it shows that how fragile Europe is. And if again, I hope that you can associate with these words: fragility, economic crisis, aggression, escalation. Where have you heard these words previously when it comes to world history? These are very important indicators for certain things which happened across the world, be it before the First World War or be it the Second World War. When there is suspicion, when there are fault lines, when there are issues related to economic stress, things escalate very quickly. Things escalate very quickly. Fragile means weak. And therefore, the very simple concept is that the realities of geopolitics show us that the the simple Europe, which shows as EU very powerful, it is not as powerful as it seems. And here you have to write at least 100 words. And in the conclusion, one of you asked me what would be the conclusion here. See, the conclusion as a UPSC aspirant is always optimistic. Don't write the world is going to end, the third world war is coming. This shows a temperament of pessimism. You will say that how India says that yes, there has been a recent escalation with regards to UK giving depleted nuclear rounds to Ukraine. However, the Russia-Ukraine conflict can be and should be controlled and managed via diplomatic channels which are based on confidence building. Be a diplomat in writing the answer itself. Confidence building, rule based order, diplomacy, these are the words which are going to sprinkle around this question. You can't just say that the world is going to end. You can't say that the conflict will end at one random day. No, it's a concept of very simply being optimistic in a way. So I hope that you understand how to answer this question. It's a very open-ended question, so not everybody is going to write the same answer. So there is no one answer for this question, but will change as per the context itself. So very simply, the Russia-Ukraine crisis becomes the context for this. Belarus has now been added as a dimension. UK is the one which has escalated it. Major arms race is happening as of right now. Energy crisis in Europe is related to the Russia-Ukraine crisis itself. World is also going into a recessionary trend because of Russia-Ukraine crisis, because the higher the fuel prices, the higher the inflation, higher unemployment, in turn leads to less consumption and therefore deflationary trend, a major fallout of too much inflation when people start to lose their jobs itself. So it's a vicious cycle which spirals into a recession. So therefore, India has to be very clear of its stance now, and very soon this can escalate into something bigger than what it is right now. So if this is correct and clear, we can move to the next topic, which is related to Yojana March of 2023. Can we discuss this? All clear? GS paper 1 and 2 is modern India, art and culture, geography, polity, and IR. Okay. Now let's talk about business environment and Yojana. Now, as I told you, I will first explain it to you. Finland is too far away, Kishan. Finland is too far away. Finland is not going to be a very good. See, Finnish as it is will never agree and cooperate in this concept, but it's not a very. Belarus is more pro-Russia. You have to be pro-Russia for it. Okay, it can't be that you randomly go to a country and say that, can I put some missiles in your country? Obviously not. Russia knows that Belarus will allow that. Now, fault lines mean places where there are breakages possible, fragility, how weak, fault line used from tectonic. You have heard geography, plate tectonics, fault lines, the same time. Okay. Keywords used in conclusion is diplomacy, de-escalation, concept related to how we need to make sure that there is no what we call as rule-based order, further de-escalation, diplomacy as a way of going forward. Okay. Yes, glass is fragile material, fragility. Okay. Now, this is Yojana topic. Now, first I need to tell you what technically Yojana gives you. See, Yojana will never give you specificities. Yojana will never give you specificities. Yojana rather will give you like a pulse line. It gives you a way to understand what the government is thinking, because it is written by mostly government servants or by what the government agencies want you to know. So Yojana as a magazine becomes important, like Kurukshetra. They give you a certain sense of what the government is thinking about. Every month there's a specific theme on which 4 to 5 articles will come. And this topic is about startup environment, ease of doing business. Now, ease of doing business is something which you already know. It's not something which is totally new. We know that the government of India is trying under Atmanirbhar Abhiyan to create an environment in which we can inculcate and create an ecosystem for startups. And generally, the way India can use this China level fear, or the way COVID-19 disrupted the Chinese economy, to shift manufacturing to India. And India has a very good opportunity in that regard. India has also been using what is called the PLI scheme, which is the production link incentive scheme, in which it's trying to attract certain companies via giving them subsidies after they reach a certain amount of production. We have Startup India program. We have a lot of programs which are running as of right now. Now, it's not that you don't know all these things. It's just that this article gives you certain points which you can write in a very standard question which comes in maybe GS paper 2, which is that how is India trying to create an ecosystem for startups or for business? Now, if you know too much, what happens is that you start to write random points. If you give, too less about this topic, then you will start to repeat the same points. Now, what is the purpose of this discussion is that you take away certain keywords from this. And when you've taken the keywords, you add them in order to create an answer, or just keep this with you so that if this type of question comes which talks about business environment ecosystem, you use these terms in that way. So let's talk about the context here. See, the government has now, see, one thing should be very clear. Yojana articles are never criticizing. It's always a positive light in which they write. So you embody that positive light. So you don't say, no, everything is, whatever the article is saying is not true. As a UPSC aspirant, you want to work for the government of India. If the government of India says that ease of doing business is becoming better, and it is good becoming better. And that is why reading Yojana is important, because that gives you a certain way of understanding what the government is thinking. So India has been trying to create a conducive environment, a positive environment for business, and generally removing a lot of barriers which are there. And more than that, India is pushing for certain benefits, subsidies to entities and sectors which can help the Indian economy grow, specifically startups. Startups are important because that allows young entrepreneurs to use their ideas, and some ideas do work, some don't work. And in India now there's a major push because of certain serials, Shark Tank and all, that we all start to now understand turnover, revenue, what is the concept of margin rates and all. We have becoming more and more conscious with regards to these terminologies which are used in business, and everybody now wants to be an entrepreneur. That's a separate issue altogether. But the basic point of the matter is that it gives you an opportunity to know what are the things which the government of India are doing. Now, what are the initiatives which the government of India is playing with or pushing to make sure that startups and there's an ecosystem for ease of doing? First is that they are simplifying. Now, for me, details don't matter. For you, they should also not matter. Look at the words which they are using so as to write it in the examination. In a mains based question, it will be important to write these words. Simplification of procedures related to application, renewal, inspection, filling of records. So the first word you need to remember, please note this, is simplification. You simplify the way you enter and exit the market. Enter and exit the market. This can be both a GS paper 3 and 2 question, because it's related to governance also in a way. Then rationalization by repealing, amending, and subsuming redundant law. Rationalization is the next word which you need to remember. Rationalization means that basically if there are 50 laws and one law is needed, you rationalize it into one. Use reason rather than legal procedure to actually create a law or legal system which can create a conducive environment for businesses. Then digitization by eliminating manual forms. Basically, you can do anything and everything on record itself. Further, decriminalization. This is a new aspect and a very interesting aspect, which is that decriminalization of what we call as technical or procedural defaults. See, in India, what happens is that I didn't comply with a small law, legal procedure, or I signed a contract. And in that contract, I was not able to meet it for some reason, very genuine reason. In Indian legal system as of right now, for such breach of contract, 7 years jail, 14 years jail, or you are made to give 100 crores as penalty, this and that. Meaning, for minor technical defaults, you don't create a criminal offense that everybody becomes a 420, 400 BC, or what we call as fraud. Very simply, businesses work in a certain model and sometimes they don't work. So you can't put every entrepreneur who has failed into the jail itself. So you decriminalize business-based minor procedural defaults. It's not that you do a scam of 500 crores and then you walk. Unfortunately, such people are walking free. But the basic point of the matter is people who do very minor defaults in payment or defaults in certain contractual obligations, decriminalization is important because that allows people or encourages people to enter into the business zone itself. So what is the takeaway from this discussion, this basic discussion? 4 words: simplification, rationalization, digitization, and decriminalization. Can you remember these 4 for the examination? Come on, yes, no? Yes? Very good. Note them down. This is how you make notes. You note them down in order to create a repository for yourself. In order to create a repository for yourself. Very good. Thereafter, the government as of right now, is also taking measures of raising capital and reducing compliance burden. Basically, it's creating an ecosystem for startups to get credit quickly. For example, Mudra scheme. But Mudra, the amounts are very low, 2 lakh, 4 lakh, 5 lakh. You need here at least. If a 100 crore company, 500 crore company has to create or follow certain rules, a small company can be exempted from that. But now for you and me, what becomes important is a very important portal which has been created. national single window system, which is going to be a single platform to identify, obtain approvals from investors, entrepreneurs, and businesses. Basically, governmental approval can sometimes lead to red tape. Red tape means you have procedural, you have to pay bribes, you have to do this, that. It takes 5 weeks to get a very simple approval. So they're creating a single window system in which you can get that. Further, FDI, as of right now, except for defense and atomic research, which are called what are called strategic sectors, everywhere else it is more or less 100% automatic route, in which that first you create, then you get approval. You don't need to get prior approval in that way. Red tape means a lot of procedural, what we call as steps itself, which leads to bogging down. It's a word, it's a rhetoric, it's a figure of speech which is used for creating what is called procedural hurdles in a way. So the government is putting its efforts in order to make sure that every sector can get even foreign direct investment for very simply through automatic route. And when it comes to approvals, they can be taken later. Now, before I go to the question itself, please understand this. It's a very simple article. It does not give you too much to play with. It actually gives you too much to play with. It's just that it gives you enough to write an answer. So rather than writing any random things which come to your mind, Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, Startup India, this and that, which will not make no coherence, this article gives you a ready-made answer itself. So for a question like this, which is discuss the measures introduced by the government of India to facilitate startup ecosystem in India. Discuss the measures introduced by the government of India to facilitate startup ecosystem in India. This could be an answer in which you can write anything and everything. The NSWS is a single portal on which the entrepreneur can apply for a certain approval, and all ministries monitor that, and therefore you can just simply get approvals online, don't have to go to the ministry. Negative points. Why would you like to write the negative points? Shakib, you tell me. Discuss the measures to introduce government to facilitate startup ecosystem. Would the government of India like you telling them that they are useless, or that they're not doing their job, or that startups are failing itself? The person who is checking this paper, he is getting incentive from the government of India to check the paper. So if you are an IS, even before becoming an IS officer, you automatically start to criticize every government scheme. Would it be a good way of writing an answer? You tell me. You know the answer to this question. You agree, you disagree. You are going to work with the government of India. So you have to have a positive, optimistic outlook about certain things. If they say critically analyze, that's a separate issue altogether. But even in a critically analyzed question, you don't end the answer by saying that you are useless, your things don't work, you are just wasting money, this, that. Don't ever say that. You have to always balance it out by saying, no, justified. I believe if the UPSC says that the sun rises from the north, it rises from the north. You are, once you become an IS officer, you make it east or west, whatever you want. But as of right now, you are not in a position to challenge what the UPSC is saying. I'm not trying to say that you write everything is rosy picture, but in GS paper 2, a lot of times we have to have a basic orientation where we are balancing our answer with basic concepts which are necessary and shows that you believe in bureaucracy. Because when you criticize the government, you are technically criticizing the bureaucracy. That all bureaucracy is useless and I want to become a bureaucrat. That is being a hypocrite or technically contradicting yourself itself. So don't do that. Okay. Now, how do you write an answer for this? I have already given you the recipe for writing this answer, and you already have your basic steps and the concepts ready. So how do you write an answer for this type of open-ended question? Discuss the measures introduced by government to facilitate startup ecosystem in India. So you will start by saying that startups are the backbone of an emerging economy. It is very, very important. They promote entrepreneurship, business acumen, this, that, whatever you can write. a very generic introduction. 150 word means you can't be more than 20 words. Can't be more than 20 words. Thereafter, body and conclusion. In the body, very simply say that the government of India has introduced schemes such as Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, Startup India, which are based on the principles of simplification, rationalization, digitization, decriminalization, and single portal approval, and 100% FDI by automatic route. Conclude by saying that the government of India is relentlessly working. It is working to make sure that the right legal system and economic framework is created in order to facilitate ecosystem which supports startups. Here again, not more than 30 words. Body will remain 100 words. Only your introduction and conclusion shrinks and increases, shrinks and increases. Yes? Clear, everyone? How many pages you write for 250 words? That is based on your handwriting. If your handwriting is big, it could be 3 pages. If your handwriting is small, it can be 1 page. So it does not matter how many pages. As of right now, just learn to write. That is the most important. Okay. Now, Shark Tank is not a government initiative. No. Okay. Now, this concept clear, everybody? Okay. Automatic route means that in certain sectors, if you want to go for foreign direct investment, you need to get first approval from the ministry and then allow. Automatic route means that you can first invest, then get approval. Okay. Sir, we should balance in conclusion. I'm not asking you to admire the government, but I'm asking you to balance the answer via also talking about the level of efforts which goes into creating this basic ecosystem. Okay. I'm not asking you to admire or praise. I'm just asking you to balance. Okay. You should not mention Shark Tank in this. Please don't do that. Now, the right to health bill. Now, this is a topic which has been in the news again in different perspectives. First, only half of the story was there. Now we're getting to know more and more details about it. It's interesting because it is related to health, which impacts everybody. After the pandemic itself, we've seen that this is the one sector which is taking quite a long time to recover itself. Now, we have the right to health. We have the right to health. It's implied within which article of the Constitution? Come on. Which article of the Constitution it is implied in? Very good. Article 21, life and liberty. And it's an implied concept. And even the Supreme Court, and I will give you the judgment name later, even said that yes, it is the prerogative of the government to give. There are the two words which were used was affordability. Affordability. That affordable and accessible. Because what happens in India today is that if you have access to health, it is not affordable. Some people can afford it, then they don't have access only. So very simply, the two words which are important is that accessibility, a lot of people don't have, which is very good healthcare as of right now is the privilege of the wealthy. Affordability concept is very simple, which is that if they have access to it, it's extremely expensive, so it's not affordable. So Rajasthan government in that regard and in this context introduced a bill which has become a major controversy in that state, and even the Indian Medical Association, the IMA, has taken the sides of the doctors which are protesting as of right now. And the concept of the right to the bill is that there are multiple concepts, but I'll go with the core issue. We'll discuss all of them, but I want to discuss the core issue here. The core issue here is very simple, that the bill says that every resident of Rajasthan, firstly, resident of Rajasthan, every resident of Rajasthan, once this bill becomes operational, though in draft form itself as of right now, will have the right to, and there was this confusion. First, it says emergency healthcare for free in any public or private hospital. First, it was said emergency healthcare. Now, when we read further what was actually passed by the assembly, it says even OPD and inpatient healthcare. Inpatient means that once you get admitted to the hospital, and OPD is when you are not admitted, you are just going to consult the hospital itself. So indoor patient, yes, indoor patient, and outpatient. Now, very simply, this is a further expansion of the concept of healthcare and accessibility. The basic idea behind this bill is that anybody who does not have access to healthcare should at least get emergency healthcare for free, no prepayment. And if you are in a certain bracket, and that certain bracket has not been defined as of right now, you should also get OPD and the basic healthcare of the hospital for free. More interestingly, it has not just added government hospitals, it's saying private hospital also. It says that if a private hospital got a land on a subsidized rate because it was a hospital, give them for free. If it says that you are a private hospital, you have to give emergency healthcare for free itself. But the problem with this is, and you can automatically make it out, see, the government sector won't care. Because as it is getting the money from the government. It knows that how it is going to go forward in the way the money comes from the state government itself. However, private hospitals will always resist this. Because if it is free, private hospitals are basically businesses. And if it's free, then who gives the money? And when the government is saying that we will reimburse the money to the state, private and public hospitals, then their question is, when will you reimburse? When will you reimburse? How much will you reimburse? And the biggest problem with this whole bill is, it's not defining things. It's not defining things. What is an emergency? What is an emergency? What is emergency healthcare? I met an accident. Emergency healthcare. I was playing cricket and my legs strained. Emergency? But I will again go into the emergency ward only. I will go into the emergency ward only. So very simply, do you get free? Do you get free, or do you get not free access when you go with a certain injury? The certain injury. So therefore, the concept is very simple, which is that it's a good initiative. It's a good initiative. The idea behind it is actually good. But the problem is that its implementation is going to be a problem which doctors are actually resisting against. Is first, where does the money come from? And second, how do you define emergency? Third is that private hospitals will never agree to this type of a bill. And fourth is that if it's about accessibility and affordability, you can't randomly force doctors to work for free. Because in healthcare, if there is negligence, it could lead to death. So for example, you get emergency healthcare for free, but you get the substandard quality of medicine, substandard quality of equipment. And if you pay for it, you get the best quality. This can also be created. Now, as I said, for the whole healthcare sector in India, it could be a major precedence for a very important concept itself, which is universal free healthcare. But we all can agree that this way it's not going to work, which is that you first have to create a consensual point at which both private and public hospitals come, and you can't force private hospitals, give them for free. And even when you're doing that, you can't just go without defining emergency or the basic concepts within this whole sector, So before I go into the nitty-gritty, I hope you understand the core issue here. The core issue is that a good bill, it's a good precedence, but the problem is that its implementation and its wording and the way it is pushing certain regulations on the private sector is going to be problematic in that way. It's a vague, absurd, it has a lot of ambiguities in that way. See, how Western countries regulate it is basically you have NHS, for example, the best example of the English model. The English model, NHS, is the best model with regards to this. But NHS is only in government-run hospitals. It's not in private hospitals. And their social health schemes are, the budget is firstly close to 10 times higher than what we have in India. And further, it's based on a model in which the government reimburses, first you pay. So it's a concept in which the first payment is made by the people itself. But as we know from Tamil Nadu model, that insurance-based, remember, insurance-based healthcare system is also not good. Because if you insure everybody and the insurance people will give money, then the hospitals then start to become greedy, which is a very good example of how America works. American healthcare is the worst in the world. And it's actually worst in the world because very simply it is based on the insurance model, wherein every small thing, insurance companies come in and premiums are very, very high. So it's a very slippery slope. When you try to come in with regards to private sector, they will always try to resist. How do you tackle it? Is as of right now, there's no correct model for it. India has to find its own way. See, in India, unlike UK, people can still afford. In India, certain people don't have accessibility itself. First, you need to create the healthcare infrastructure that you can actually bring in these people. Then you talk about affordability. And as of right now, you should be very clear. For example, I was traveling via Rajasthan. I met with an accident on a highway in near Jaipur. And if I'm taken to the hospital, and as I was going from, my domicile is in Delhi, will I be given free treatment? You tell me. No. Because it says, no, it says resident of Rajasthan. So it excludes. If you don't have domicile, if you are not living in Rajasthan, you don't have proof for that, then it does not work for you. So it is again a little bit problematic. So that's the problem here. Too many definitional aspects have not been defined, and that makes it problematic in the larger context. So let's go into the nitty-gritty. Thousands of doctors have taken to the streets in Rajasthan to actually protest against the right to health bill hitting the healthcare services across the state. The Indian Medical Association, the IMA, the largest physician association, has also supported these doctors. And the bone of contention is basically the bill. The right to health bill, which has been now, in a way, draft form has been considered by the assembly, says that every resident of the state has a right to avail free healthcare services in outpatient department services and inpatient department, OPD and IPD, in all public and private facilities. Public and private facilities. The Tamil Nadu model is very simple. In Tamil Nadu model, every person is given state-based insurance. When you go to the hospital, the insurance company pays the hospital, not you. But there are premiums which you need to pay, and certain amount of the state pays. But the problem is the hospital's recovery of that insurance is becoming hard itself. creating a lot of confusion, doctors becoming managers, and a lot of competition within departments itself. OPDs, when you are not admitted, you just go to the hospital. I have a cold, I don't feel well. The doctor writes, have paracetamol, Dolo 650. When they say, no, 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 you are too ill, they admit you. Then you become an inpatient. Out, in. Clear, everybody? Okay. Now, the first problem is all OPD and inpatient. The free healthcare service includes consultation, drugs, diagnosis, emergency transport, procedure, emergency care. And this technically is very hard to apply. What it argues is that it is progressively trying to reduce out-of-pocket expenditure of the people and give them accessibility to healthcare. But if you go into the further details, of the bill itself, you will realize that there are other smaller factors here. It also says that via the bill, the person will have the right to collect information for healthy living. Out of pocket meaning what you give out of your pocket, so your expenditure. So very simply, if the hospital is withholding certain information, they have the right to get it. Free consultation, drugs, emergency transport, emergency care in all government prescribed hospitals along with private hospitals. Free and affordable care for surgeries in all government hospitals. Free service from private hospitals which got land allocation at concessional rate. Right to have informed consent. Basically, they can't do anything without taking your consent. As it is, they don't do that. And right to confidentiality, that I don't want to reveal who I am. You have to work on me. Right to safe and quality treatment at government and private hospitals as per prescribed standards. Now, this in itself becomes a problem, which is that a lot of private hospitals do a lot of practices which are not safe or quality. They just to increase bills. So the simple point of the matter is there's two basic arguments. Genuinely, there's a lot of confusion, but private hospitals will never allow this to go through because it will technically close their business aspect. So what is the constitutionality to this concept? The constitutionality to this concept is that right to health is implied under Article 21. And in the Paschim Bengal Khet Mazdoor Samiti versus State of West Bengal 1996 judgment, the Supreme Court as it is states that the government has a responsibility to make medical care accessible and bolster in the public health sector. So in a way, the Supreme Court also withholds and in a way uphold the concept of right to health as an implied concept within Article 21. Now, why is there opposition vis-a-vis this whole bill itself? There is first opposition because very simply, there's a lot of ambiguity around who will pay for this mandatory free payment. And second is there's no definition of emergency healthcare. You and me understand that government hospitals already are giving a lot of free healthcare to people. But because this subsumes the private sector, it becomes problematic for people or for businesses to take forward. And let's be very honest, and I think you all would have experiences somewhere or the other. Private hospitals in India have a lot of shady practices. Some hospitals are very good, not generalizing. The fact of the matter is that private hospitals operate in certain places or in certain brackets in which they try to take out a lot out of the patients, and something which could be cheap is escalated quite a lot, and people do get bankrupt because of private healthcare in India. So let's be very, very honest, that it is an issue in India. It's not a bad bill. And we can't say that these hospitals are holier than thou, that no, we are totally perfect. We have not done anything wrong. Private hospitals do things which necessitate certain types of bills, and specifically these type of bills. So I hope that you can agree with me with regards to this. Your experience could be subjective, but we've seen enough movies and enough serials and have personal experiences where people have struggled to pay basic healthcare bills from private sector. So it is needed. And as it is, medical morality in India today has become questionable. Our doctors are relentlessly trying to make sure that they work for the hospitals, but hospitals have now become more businesses more than anything. That is the biggest issue here. Now, so we understand three aspects here. First, what is the bill? The bill has good provisions. The problem being ambiguity. And third is that is it constitutional? It is constitutional. Very simply, this is a GS paper 2 based discussion, and you need to have an understanding of bills as it is because they come in GS paper 2. Are we clear with regards to the arguments made here? And I hope that you're able to build an opinion. I'm here basically to build an opinion for you, that are we clear with regards to certain type of questions? Yes, we are. Perfect. Great. So now let's move to the question which can come. The Rajasthan Right to Health Bill creates new precedents with regards to universal affordable health. Discuss. Now, as I said, this question is like a open-ended question with regards to how you assess it. So discuss means that you have to just discuss the pros and cons or the validity or the merit or demerit of this whole bill in that way. Now, introduction is very simply going to be the current affairs, that recently the Rajasthan Right to Health draft bill has been passed by the Legislative Assembly. It has now has gone to a standing committee for further what we call as review, and there is a lot of protest which has been created in Rajasthan, where doctors have impacted the healthcare sector by going on strike. Here you write again 20 words, not more than that. Thereafter, body is going to become the merits and demerits. Here we will talk about merits. Merits is universal healthcare, constitutionality, the concept of inpatient, outpatient, accessibility, affordability. Demerit or the problems is that it is ambiguous, private sector is not agreeing, and doctors believe that it will only lead to further problems with regard to the healthcare sector than actually helping it, limited in the sense it's resident of the state itself. Conclude 30 words very simply, have to keep it very simple and say that as much as this bill creates precedents for universal healthcare, it needs to be more nuanced and more detailed. The bill in its present form is not acceptable to anybody. So therefore, we need to, don't write your opinion, write an opinion which is acceptable to the UPSC. So you very simply say that in the present form, nuance means it has layers, it has a little bit of detail. So very simply you write, in the present form, the bill is problematic. However, it is a very important precedence or very important concept which Rajasthan is playing with. It has merits, it has demerits. We should make sure that the demerits are removed and all stakeholders come to agreement in a way. Clear, everyone? Are we clear with regards to this? Okay. Yes, Anirudh, you're a doctor and you agree with the bill. Very good. It's about implementation. Truly. Very good. Perfect. Now, the second last topic related to Kurukshetra. See, Yojana is a governance based magazine. Kurukshetra is economics oriented. Now, very simply, in this topic, I'm going to give you a lot of data that the budget has increased this, the budget has done that. But you don't have to actually get caught up in that discussion, which is that you don't have to learn the data. What you actually look at is how certain things are getting highlighted in the budget and what is the emphasis of the budget itself. Because that will help you again create a certain opinion about the sector, and more than that, about government's agenda towards this sector. Because see, India as of right now does not spend as much as it should on both education, healthcare, and more than that in culture generally, but healthcare and healthcare ecosystem, we can do more. We can surely do more, but we're not spending that much. If the budgetary allocation is increasing, it's a good thing. But where are we allocating it is more important. So the two words which are giving in the title itself is very important. Efficient and inclusive. Efficient means that whatever we are spending should be in the right direction. Should be in the right direction. Second is inclusive. Again, the concept of accessibility comes through and the concept of affordability comes through. That you need to have accessible healthcare and you also need to have affordable healthcare. These are two very important words, and now I add two more: accessibility, affordability, inclusive, efficient. If you add these four together, you get a very important, very important set of words which can be and should be used in the examination for healthcare. And see, these words are not going to fall from the sky. That is why we have this discussion with you here, because they actually give you a very important insight into what the government is thinking with regards to this sector. Okay, so let's talk about the concept of inclusive, efficient healthcare ecosystem. So the healthcare system has been getting priority according to the government since the past few years, and the budgetary allocation is steadily increasing. There has been an increase of 3.4% in the budget for 2022-23, and as of right now, 89,000 crores has been allocated to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And India has emerged as the 10th biggest global medical tourism hub, close to $9 billion. What do you mean by medical tourism? That because healthcare in America, healthcare in UK, healthcare in the EU countries is very expensive, people travel to India for healthcare, basically to get surgeries, which very simple surgeries, which could be very expensive there as it is. With the exchange rate we have with EU and all, it becomes very easy. This news actually is basic pure economics, but because we cover Kurukshetra, we do cover Yojana Kurukshetra topic, it's a GS paper 3 discussion. So it's not that it's GS paper 1, 2 will not take it. We're taking it. I am not asking you to learn any of this data. What is the takeaway? Takeaway is 10th biggest, very important for prelims examination, generally for mains, and further 3.4% increase year on year. Now, what are the highlights of the budget? Again, don't get scared by this data. Don't even have to learn this data. Just have to keep it very simple and straightforward. 153 new nursing colleges will be created. 157. For me, this data is totally useless. What is more important is nursing colleges, which means that India has a dearth of nurses who are trained with the right set of skills. Therefore, nursing colleges will be created. The Department of Health Research has got 300 crores. Again, this is immaterial. Health research, R&D is becoming an important concept. Budgetary allocation of ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research, has gone up 7.4%. Labs are now open for public and private medical schools. Basically, again, immaterial. What it shows is public, private. ICMR is Indian Council for Medical Research. Public-private partnership in research. A mission to eliminate sickle cell anemia. Anemia is the dearth of deficiency of iron by 2047. Sickle cell anemia adds a genetic aspect to it. Quite now is becoming quite common, but is induced by the deficiency of iron. Initiated with a focus on raising awareness, conducting universal screening. Again, for me, it does not matter what is the data or the years, or the 2047 is the most important concept, by what period we want to end it. And we are talking about anemia as a very important disease on which the government wants to focus. As I said, Kurukshetra is always written like this. I am trying to tell you how to decode out of Kurukshetra. How to decode out of Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra articles are always written like this. Lot of data is there. We have to just scan through it to get basic idea. So nursing, R&D, public-private partnership in research, anemia. Then further, National Health Mission, allocation has gone up marginally. National Digital Mission has also, the funding has gone up. The Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana again gone up. And the Ayush Ministry again gets a little bit of higher allocation. You don't need to write any of this data in the examination. You don't have that much capacity as much as time to learn this data. And year on year, it will change. So how does it matter that you learn it or not? So don't worry about with regards to this. Very simply, look at the keywords. Look at the keywords that very simply, there is a basic emphasis on certain things. The emphasis on what? That we will do R&D, we will do public-private partnership, we will do nursing colleges, anemia. And this discussion shows you the 4 key areas in which the government of India wants to improve vis-a-vis health. National Health Mission, National Digital Mission, Ayushman Bharat program, and Ayush Ministry with regards to Ayurveda, Unani, and also alternative medicine in that way. For us, again, all of this data is unnecessary. See, this is why I'm doing it with you. You need to know how to decode or read through data. Very simply, would it be correct to say that healthcare has been given priority in the budget? Yes or no? Yes. That's it. That is the key takeaway. The key takeaway from this whole understanding and concept. And you see, from creating 22 new aims to implementing multidisciplinary courses, skilled workforce and skill development, national governance policy vis-a-vis how we are using data itself and keeping the data anonymous. The simple point of the matter is that the government of India is creating a ecosystem for healthcare in which research and development has become a major aspect now. Why is research and development become important? In what context is research and development so important? How is that India is not talking about research and development? Very good. Vaccines and COVID-19. COVID-19 and vaccines have actually shown us that research and development at major critical moments can change everything. And whilst India was very proactive in pushing the vaccine itself, we still had a lot of issues with regards to the patented vaccines of the West. And India did do a very good job with regards to COVID-19 vaccine, but we had to create a lot of research facilities in a very quick time. We can do better, and that is why research and development has become a major push. So let's look at the type of question which can come from this area. The budgetary allocation of the healthcare sector, and this is a GS paper 3 question in a way. The budgetary allocation of the healthcare sector reinstates the government's commitment to quality healthcare in India. Critically analyze. So it's a very positive sounding, but I made this question a little bit dangerous. What is the word which makes this question dangerous? Come on, tell me. Very good. Critically analyze. Critically analyze means that you would need to be very wary of how you answer this question. It's asking you to give negative, but how you end the answer is also equally important. The budgetary allocation of healthcare sector reinstates government's commitment to quality healthcare in India. Now, introduction, body, conclusion. Now, first, The simple point is introduction is going to be increased budgetary allocation. That by the 3.4% has increased. If you remember it, very good. If you don't remember it, no issues. Then body. How does the budgetary allocation reinstate government's commitment? There's a push on nursing colleges, on AIIMS, on R&D, and thereafter research. We are also creating these schemes which help in people becoming more and more healthy and get quality healthcare. But now you have to write the cons, or what we call as critically analyze. In critically analyze, you would have to write that as much as we are pushing this much money into this sector, it is not comparable to other developed countries. So, not comparable to other developed countries. Further, there's also the issue that basically the ratio of doctors vis-a-vis population, which comes to 1:5,000 maybe, is very low. So we need to also push for health education, create a regime in which doctors can get incentives. So you don't give too much negative. Don't say that Indian medicine is useless, lack of quality is there, lack of infrastructure. Don't write these things. Corruption and all, don't mention. Just say that there are procedural issues. There's a better way of saying corruption. There are procedural issues. There are infrastructural issues. There are issues related to budgetary allocation not reaching last mile hospitals. Basically, the grassroots level reality is totally different, and money allocation has become a problem. So you don't write corruption straight away. So have to be a little bit more careful in what words you use. And conclude by saying that whilst there are a lot of areas in which India lacks, which is basic infrastructure, primary healthcare, and even last mile connectivity, and even accessibility and affordability, India or the government of India is committed to create this regime in a better way and is creating an ecosystem in which India can go forward with inclusive and efficient healthcare. So you see that how I'm using the same information backwards in order to give a more balanced answer. That yes, there are issues, but there are positives also. Clear, everyone? What is the trick here? How to play with a critically analyzed type of question? Yes? Very good. Okay. With this, we move to the last topic, GS paper 1, art and culture. Adopt a heritage scheme. Now, a very simple topic, easy topic. The concept is that the government of India very recently said that we don't have the money. In India, education is a problem, healthcare is a problem, poverty is a problem, lot of issues. Culture is not in our priority list. Maybe it is, so 10th, 11th, 12th, lot of priorities before that. Now, in that basic commitment, the parliamentary standing committee asked this question, that why is that the budgetary allocation of the Ministry of Culture is 0.07%. Not even 0.7%, 0.075% of the whole budget. Remember, it's not 0.7, it's 0.07%, which is extremely low vis-a-vis others. Maybe in China or in US, 1 to 3% budgetary allocation. In that context, government of India says, we don't have the capacity. And in that context, this type of a scheme becomes important, which is adopt a heritage scheme, wherein private players or private companies or entities are adopting heritage sites and developing them. For example, the recent context is that the Dalmia Group has consented to adopt the Red Fort and create a whole museum around it and fund the development of the Red Fort sector itself. Now, as of right now, this is the only solution which we see, and this is a very realistic question which comes in the examination or can come in the examination in GS paper 1, which is that how do you preserve our culture in a context in which the government itself has now said that we cannot allocate more money. So the ASI does not give money, the Ministry of Culture does not give money, the Sangeet Natak Academy does not get money, all the institutions created or attached to it is also not basically going to get anything. So very simply, this is the only way we protect our dharohar. Dharohar means heritage and apni pehchan means identity. So very simply, how do we protect our own heritage and our own identity? And the answer to that question is adopt a heritage. So the context, I hope that you understand the basic point, which is public-private partnership for heritage conservation. So under the Adopt a Heritage scheme, the Dalmia Bharat Group has accepted and is going to develop and has developed the Red Fort and a museum and a light and sound show to narrate the history to the visitors, which is a very significant development. The scheme has been a collaborative initiative of the Ministry of Tourism with Ministry of Culture and Archaeological Survey of India. So remember, it is not one, but the Tourism Ministry understands that it is the heritage which we portray. Therefore, it is important to pay attention to it. Ministry of Culture and Archaeological Survey of India, both technically ASI is attached to as an autonomous body within the Ministry of Culture. But these three have to come together because that is the only way they can identify heritages which need to be preserved. And under this scheme, it allows public and private sector enterprises and entities to acquire top heritage sites and enhance tourism activities. So they can create a certain infrastructure which can support that tourism activity. Further, the basic point is that sites and monuments can be selected based on footfall, how many people come there, visibility, and certain companies and individuals can become monument mitras, basically monument friends. And they can, initial period of 5 years, develop and support that heritage. And as of right now, what we believe is that close to 600 monument mitras are registered with 27 memorandum of understanding MOUs have been signed at 106 tourism places. Now, you don't need to remember this. What you need to remember is that why is this scheme important? This scheme is important because it creates a basic precedence for heritage conservation. We are very clear that heritage is not going to get the budgetary allocation it deserves. So very simply, private partnership is very, very important. Very, very important in that way. So private partnership is the only future for preserving the culture which we so preserve and want to preserve and cherish in that way. Dharohar means heritage, yes. So the objectives of the scheme are very simple. Develop basic infrastructure, tourism infrastructure and holistic development of the site. Enhance tourism experience by giving them facilities, amenities. Sustainable tourism, which is basically environmentally conscious, proper operation and maintenance. And last but not the least is to create employment and support communities which live off these heritage sites. Therefore, this scheme becomes like a lifeline to the Ministry of Culture and the ASI to survive as an institution and make sure that our heritage is also conserved at the same point of time. So what type of question can come? And this is the last discussion we have today. The conservation of our heritage needs public-private partnership. Comment. Now, in a comment question, basically, you have to give your own opinion. So in this type of question, introduction, body, conclusion, In the introduction, you have to very simply talk about the importance of heritage. It's a very realistic question which can come from GS paper 1. Thereafter, in the body, you have to talk about private public partnership vis-a-vis the 0.075% allocation of the budget, and say that private partnership is very important because the government has other priorities. And further, what is the importance of heritage? Okay, what is the importance of heritage? Why is it important to conserve heritage? Why do you want to who are you? You are Jyoti. Yes. What makes you Jyoti is your history, and you have certain things which are related to you. I'm an Indian. You're an Indian. What makes us Indian is what? Our culture, our monuments, our artistic expressions, our intangible heritage. So if I don't conserve my monuments, my culture, then who am I? Then who am I? No one. What India is unity in diversity, and that diversity is expressed through heritage. So in a way, you would have to preserve. You are no, this is the problem in the thinking of the government also. Once you don't allow heritage to be conserved, or you don't support heritage, heritage will go away. Heritage will be destroyed, and there's no bringing it back. So we say that very simply that Ajanta is the most beautiful form of caves. If Ajanta don't get money and it gets destroyed, it does not come back. Then if you are not Ajanta, if you are not Hinduism, if you are not something, then what are you? That is the basic point. So conserving heritage is about conserving your own culture, your own identity. Apni dharohar, my heritage, my identity. So it's a very important concept of conserving heritage. Heritage is a word used for culture. That's the basic point. So with very low budgetary allocation, you have to create a private sector which is ready to invest in the heritage. As it is, tourism economy in India is very big. People don't go and see roads. They go and see the Taj Mahal, they go and see the Red Fort, they go and see the temples, they go and see very important cave structures, they go and see things which are nothing but our heritage. So therefore, if we don't conserve our heritage, people will not come to India because there's no cultural experience in that way. India is known as the land of culture. So in that way, private partnership is important in that sense to conserve it. And then you can talk about the adopt a heritage scheme and say that it's an important concept. Now, herein comes your input in the conclusion. And you have to say that heritage conservation should be our priority because it is our identity. Once lost, it does not come back. And unfortunately, people, we are not giving that much emphasis. As it is, we are not giving a lot of what we call as budgetary allocation to it. So India has to encourage the private sector to protect our identity and our heritage. Clear, everybody? You can add any scheme which you know, you can add whatever you want to add, but you have to talk about private partnership in that way. Yes, clear? Perfect. Great. So very simply, before I end this session, what have we done today? We've discussed very interesting topic with regards to GS paper 3, 1, 2, all. The first topic was to understand the Russia's move to put in missiles in Belarus, but that has been induced because of UK's action of giving Ukraine what we call as depleted uranium tipped tank rounds. Second topic, we understood words which are very important vis-a-vis creating startup ecosystem, simplification, rationalization, the concept of digitization, decriminalization. Thereafter, we moved to Rajasthan, where we understood the concept of a bill which is creating good precedents. However, it is not based on sound logic because it is not defining a lot of things as of right now. Further, we understood the budgetary allocation to the healthcare sector, what is it, and how it is developing and trying to push quality healthcare in India. And last but not the least, this topic deals with private partnership vis-a-vis heritage conservation. Yes? Done? Perfect. So if all of this is clear, thank you so much. I'll see you, some of you tomorrow in class vis-a-vis the evening batch, some of you in the morning batch of Modern India. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a good night. Have your dinner. And it's always a pleasure to teach you all and meet you all from time to time. I'll see you next month with another GS1, GS2 session, and we'll take another set of issues related to that. Remember, mains-based current affairs, opinion matters. Never have a negative outlook. For anybody who's giving the examination in 2023, all the best. Don't get demotivated. Don't have to give up right now. You've been struggling till this point. The struggle is worth it. Just go forward and conquer the examination. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Good night.